Victoria Collier. I heard about her. Someone was telling me this lady knows about benefits you wouldn't believe. Victoria Collier is a veteran, Air Force veteran, and she really understands what we go through. So give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. I don't know anything about any of that, but I do know a bit about VA benefits, and I understand I have about 20 minutes to share with you everything the Veterans Administration has to offer. And through my experience being an elder care attorney, that most veterans don't know, they're not aware of what the Veterans Administration does have to offer, but what they are aware of is all the bad stuff that's going on in the news right now. So what I want to tell you and share with you is the good stuff that all veterans may be entitled to. Now, again, I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm going to hit the highlights, and I find by doing some examples is the best way to really resonate. And before I get there, I understand that this chapter had a lot more members than it was supposed to at one point because you didn't have to verify you were a veteran. So I came prepared. These are pictures of me in the military. I don't have my DD-214 up here, but in these three pictures, I was in the Air Force, active duty from 1989 through 1995. In Germany is where I was stationed there. In the middle, I was playing Army, even though I was Air Force. And I was a carpenter for 3 years and a paralegal for 3 years. Decided at the right age of 19 that looking forward into my life at 40, I would look very pretty swinging a hammer to anybody. So I cross-trained, became a paralegal, which led me to become a lawyer. And in the next picture, this is when I was getting my first stripe. Every veteran has their own story. I was so happy to get my first stripe because you can see I'm not a big person, and getting punched all the time until you get your first stripe takes a toll on your little arms. And then here, I was in the Army Reserves as a first lieutenant, and I was swearing in an enlisted member, re-enlisting. So those are some pretty cool things. And as you age, your service is important to you, and it clearly is important to you because you're here today, but it's important to your family members as well. And that's the benefit I get from being a lawyer who helps seniors, and as declared this morning, apparently you're all elders. So, so hold on to those pictures because your families are going to want to see them later. But I haven't always been a lawyer. These are some of my credentials, and I'm not going to bore you with that. But what I will say is that I have written 2 books specific to VA benefits. One is called 47 Secret Veterans Benefits for Seniors. It's available on Amazon. And the other is called Paying for Long-Term Care Financial Help for Wartime Veterans, the VA Aid and Attendance Benefit. And I was going to offer a special today, but if they have me come back in either October, November, or December for the special, then I'll give away a third of the proceeds towards the cause of your choice. So come back. All right. So what long-term care benefits are available to veterans? And that's what it's really all about at some point, is when we get out of the military, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about education. We're thinking about health care on an acute, if I get a sinus infection, if I get hurt, and primarily staying out of the healthcare system if I can, right? But when we're 70 and 80, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about trying to age well, okay? It used to be where we could live and die, but people don't live and die anymore. People keep living much longer than what they thought they would, and living can become expensive. And so we want to not just live, but we want to live well. And so it's important to know what benefits may be available to you through the VA. So healthcare, compensation, and pension. So I'm going to go through each of these by going through a scenario. And so Mary, a veteran, served 2 or more years on active duty. She's now 74 years old and has COPD. She uses a walker and is beginning to have short-term memory loss. She lives alone at home and would benefit from having a caregiver come by a few days a week to help with bathing and putting her clothes on, etc. Her income and assets are limited, and her prescriptions are about $300 per month. What can the VA do for Mary in this situation? In the effort of time, I will go ahead and just answer for you. The Veterans Health Administration is there to provide health care for prior service members, and the programs include VA hospitals, VA nursing homes. Now, the VA nursing homes on the federal level are for those who have service-connected disabilities, and you need nursing care because of that. But also prescription benefits. If you're enrolled in the healthcare system, the highest dollar amount per 30-day supply per prescription is $9 per month. That can really be a lot of savings for people who are choosing between eating or taking their medication, or having home health care come in so they can stay as independent in their own homes as possible versus taking medication. Outpatient dental services on a very limited basis, blind, vision impaired services, prosthetic services, alcohol and drug treatment. Also through the Veterans Health Administration, for people who have service-connected disabilities, there's also home adaptation services where they can come in and put wheelchair ramps and things like that. But the primary benefit that Mary can benefit from is extended care services. Now, extended care services, if she's enrolled in the Veterans Health Administration, is like home health care. The VA contracts with private providers that Mary would pay for anyway, except that the VA has a contract with them and can provide that home health care, and it's then capped at $97 per day for 24/7 care, whereas a home health care provider in the public sector can be well above $97 per day. Usually you're talking $8,000 to $12,000 per month of private care. So this can really be a great savings to avail ourselves of that. You do have to be enrolled in the healthcare system, and in order to get the extended care services, the other form for that is the VA Form 1010EC. And so that's just an example. So other examples of the VA healthcare system is that when you enroll, you fall into a priority, and that's how they determine the care you get and how much you pay for that care, if anything. There's 8 priorities, with number 1 being the most priority, and then it goes down to 8, which is the lowest priority. Priority 1 is people who have 50% or greater service-connected disabilities, or they're unemployable because of a service-connected disability. Priority group 2 is 30 to 40% service-connected disabilities. Priority group 3 are POWs, Purple Heart, medical discharges. From 1 through 3, they generally do not have any co-payments for their care whatsoever, even if the care is not related to their service-connected disabilities. Priority group 4 is where our senior citizen veterans can really get a benefit, and that is if they are in need of the aid and attendance for care by a third party on a regular basis, then they can get free hearing aids, free walkers, and assisted aids like that. I don't know if you know how much a hearing aid costs, but generally it's between $3,000 to $6,000 for a pair. And I don't know what happens to them, but sometimes seniors take them in exchange, instead of their medication, they think they're taking their pills and they're actually swallowing their hearing aids, or they get lost in assisted living, things like that. So they're expensive to replace. So getting some assistance through the VA can be very helpful. You laugh, it happens. VA number 5 is for people who qualify for the VA pension. That is low-income, low-asset veterans who are wartime veterans but don't have any service-connected disabilities. Or they are qualified for Medicaid. They would be priority group 5, and they too would have no co-pays for their care. Group 6 is 0% service-connected veterans, so you can see that if you have a service-connected but there's a 0 rating, which means you're not getting a monthly pay, but you do get a higher priority into the VA healthcare system. That's very helpful because you'll see it number 7 and 8. Number 7 and 8 are low-income veterans is number 7, and number 8 is veterans who served in the military, but they have high income, high net worth as compared to the VA record limits. The problem with 8 is that there's a freeze. If you fall in category 8, you can't even get into the healthcare system right now because there's a financial freeze on that. Now, if you were in 8 before the freeze, you could stay in, and
that's where I fell in. When I went to law school, I had no insurance, I had no income, I had none of that, no assets whatsoever, and I enrolled in the healthcare system because I do get sick once in a while. And I'm still in because I enrolled before, even though now my income and net worth is higher than the limits. And if I then needed the aid and attendance of another person, because let's fast forward, well, I don't even have to fast forward, I'm 44 years old, disabilities happen to us too at any age, but let's say I had a stroke, I could bump right into number 4 as a matter of course just because my circumstances change. So those are the priority levels in the healthcare system, and I've kind of highlighted the benefits of being in the healthcare system quickly. So scenario 2 is Mark is a veteran, has a back injury from running drills and stepping into a pothole. He's considered 100% disabled or unemployable by the VA. He's receiving X amount of dollars based on that disability. Due to the back injury, he now has arthritis that runs down both legs, causing him to need a wheelchair. Mark is now 85 and needs another person to assist him with his activities of daily living. Mark is getting 100% from the VA as far as compensation for his injuries. Is there any more that he can get? Is there any more money he can get from the VA? 100% sounds like all there is, right? If he needs the assistance of another person to help him with his activities of daily living, then he can get even higher income through a special monthly compensation called special monthly compensation, and it pays an additional amount for that higher level of care. But even before we get to that, what I want to do is talk about the service-connected disability benefit for just a second. This is the one that most veterans are most familiar with, especially Vietnam veterans, because you were in really big combat. And so what we've got to do is prove certain things. Is that a veteran had to have obtained an injury or disease while in the military, on active duty, and as a result of their injury, as a result of, or was exacerbated because of their injury. And when we can show that, then we also have to meet military mandatory requirements, is that you were discharged or released under conditions other than dishonorable. And discharges can be upgraded. For example, I've had some Vietnam veterans who had less than honorable discharges that were upgraded because they actually had undiagnosed PTSD, or because they were self-medicating while in the military using drugs, and it was upgraded later. Or they were AWOL, but it was because of a hardship issue, based on the fact that they had a spouse or a family member that was ill and they went home to take care of them and didn't get the proper authority first. So discharges can be upgraded, but otherwise it's a discharge or release under conditions other than dishonorable. The disease or injury was incurred or aggravated in the line of duty, and that doesn't mean you had to be on the front lines in combat. It means you were in the service anywhere but on active duty. And so that excludes our reservists and our guard who are doing only weekend duty, okay? Now, reservists and guard can get this too if they're called up to active duty. And the disability has to be a result not of your own willful misconduct, which means if you're out there drinking and then accidentally, like inebriated and then hurt yourself, that's not the same, because they would link the drinking to your own willful misconduct. Once you can show those mandatory criteria, the VA will issue a rating decision from 0 to 100% in increments of 10. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up to 100. And if you have multiple disabilities, they don't just add the multiple disabilities, like one disability is 10%, another one is 30%. That would seem to be that you are 40% disabled, right? Not in military math and not in VA math. So they actually have a schedule that combines disabilities and tells you what your rating is at that point. When you are rated, if you are getting 10% or more, then you would get a monthly compensation. There are levels that you want to achieve. The levels you want to achieve are, the first level would be 30%, because you get higher pay if you're married, if your rating is 30% or more. And now in states that recognize same-sex marriages, then they too can get a higher rating if they fall within that. The next rating that you want to achieve is the 50% or more, because that gets you the higher priority in the healthcare system at the highest #1 priority. At 70% or more, you're eligible for a VA federal nursing home, which is no cost of care for you. Do you know how much a nursing home costs in the private sector? On average in Georgia, it's just over $5,600 per month, and that's what the state of Georgia says it is. What real people pay is about $7,500 a month, plus medications and everything. So if you can get free, that's better than $7,500 a month, especially if you still have a spouse at home or children, specifically disabled children, that you're still caring for. So we've got to prove all those things, as well as the element of proof when you file your application for the benefit. That being that you still have a current diagnosis of disability, and that you can connect through medical evidence or lay evidence, meaning statements from buddies and friends, that it happened while in the service, and you can make that connection. Now, I'll share with you all, I was in the military while I was a carpenter. I'm all of 5'3" and 100 pounds, and while I was much stronger then than I am now, I was never any bigger. And I worked with guys that were 6'8", 6'4". Those were my comrades. And anyway, we were doing this mason job, and I put a bag of plaster on my shoulder. It was 60 pounds. And my big brother acted like a big brother and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're not done yet," and threw another one on my other shoulder. So now it's 120 pounds, and that's okay, except that I had to walk almost the length of this room plus up 28 stairs. And by the time I got to 3 stairs shy of the top, my knees buckled. Now that wasn't the injury. I didn't fall down the stairs, fortunately, because my really nice brother was at the top and he caught me. But I noticed later that it was uncomfortable going to the restroom, and so I went to the doctor and I had a hemorrhoid because of that, and I can connect that. But by the time I got out of the service, you know what? Like many other veterans, I don't like going to the doctors, and I certainly don't like going to the doctors for that, right? And so they come and they go. You can take over-the-counter stuff, and really it's just a pain in the ass, right? And so when I went to make my claim, I was told, "You don't have any current medical evidence," and I didn't get any. So while they acknowledged my incident, they said, "We're denying your claim because you can't prove the current stuff," okay? So you really have to show that you have a current injury. Now, I went and had a colonoscopy in February this year, so now I have current medical evidence that I can go back and reopen that claim. The good thing about the compensation is that it is tax-free income. It's very similar to workers' compensation. There is no income or asset standards. You are injured because of your service. You have a loss to your body or your mind because of that. The VA should pay, okay? And it is tax-free. And as I was talking about with Mark in our scenario, 100% isn't all there is. If you're at 100% or unemployable and you still need the care of another person to help you with your activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, feeding, transferring, incontinence care, then you can get additional income through the special monthly compensation program. And all you need at that point is not a whole new claim, but just a physician's affidavit on a specific VA form to file that you need that level of care. There are also benefits for survivors of veterans called death claims, widow's claims. Those are certain people, to include surviving spouses, certain types of children, such as minor children or disabled children prior to the age of 18, and also those who have paid the last illness or burial for a veteran out of their own pocket. And I'm not going to go through all of those benefits now in the consideration of time, but know that there are survivors who can get benefits on behalf of veterans. The one that I do want to highlight is that I want to highlight the accrued benefits. If there is a veteran who filed a claim and died before that claim was either approved or was approved but the VA just hasn't paid yet, then the survivors can receive that pay by filing their own accrued benefits claim. And we do that a lot for our senior veterans who are waiting for the next kind of benefit that I'm going to talk to you about because they are older, they are frail, they don't have years and years for a claim to be approved or to go through the appeal process. And so just know that that is available. There are time limits in order to file certain kinds of claims by survivors. Generally, it's a one-year claim, 1 year time from the time of death of the claimant, okay? So I really want to hit on scenario 3, and that is, now that Mark needs to move to a nursing home, well, what are his options? What did you say?
Montego Bay.
Montego Bay, yes, where those brothels are is what I understand. So the nursing home benefits, as I was talking about before, if you're service connected, there are federal VA nursing homes available. And while, you know, there's horror stories, for the most part, at least in our area in Georgia, there are 3 very, there's one right in Decatur, Atlanta, Decatur, that is very good, and it's called the Eagle's Nest, and it's off of Claremont. I'm not sure where any others are, but I do know that there are 3 state VA nursing homes for non-service connected disabled veterans. Veterans who are disabled just because of life, right? Because we get older. And one is in Milledgeville, one is in Augusta, and one is in Dublin. And again, generally speaking, there's no cost of care for the state homes, but you do have to have been a resident of Georgia for 5 years and be a wartime veteran. That means you served in the military during a wartime period. It doesn't mean you had to have been in the war. For example, I'm a war veteran of the Persian Gulf, although I served all my time in Germany. My unit went to Turkey, and we built the bases for everybody else to come and reside when everything took off. However, I was one of 2 females in the shop, and I had a patriarchal commander that kept the women at home. And so I did support services from Germany. But nonetheless, for these type of benefits, it's a wartime veteran, okay? And then there's private nursing homes with VA contracts for service-connected veterans. This is the scenario I really want to talk about in the last 5 minutes, and that is, Joe served on active duty during the Korean War, but did not sustain any service-connected disabilities. Now he's 75, he has Alzheimer's disease, and lives in an assisted living facility. How many of you know anybody who has had dementia, memory loss, Alzheimer's? Exactly, or maybe had a stroke, or broke their knee, and now they're in a nursing home, or they just need care at home or assisted living. So the monthly facility costs are more than his monthly income. So let's assume his monthly income is like $3,500 and the cost of the assisted living is $5,000. So he would have to be dipping into his savings in order to pay for that. That could go very quickly, depending on how long someone's going to live. Now, somebody with Alzheimer's frequently is very physically healthy, but mentally they're declining. And you can live 10, 15, 20 years that way. 10, 15, 20 years at $5,000 a month is a lot of money. And many people don't have long-term care insurance in this age range because there weren't really that many options until about 15 years ago, and even then they weren't very good. Now long-term care insurance options are excellent, but let's assume that we're beyond that point. Can Joe, the question is, can Joe preserve his assets and qualify for any of the VA benefits to help him pay for the assisted living cost? And so what I want to talk about is that there is a benefit called the improved pension that is specific for non-service connected disabled veterans. You're disabled because of life. There are 3 levels to the improved pension. There's the low income pension, that's because you have low income, low assets, and you have to be disabled. If you are 65 and above, you are, by definition, through the VA, disabled. How many disabled people do we have here? Based on that definition. All right. And that's a good thing when we need it to be, okay? Now, we want to be independent disabled, maybe. Then, if that veteran is not able to drive anymore because of their disabilities, then they can get a higher level of pay under the second level called housebound pension. And then if they need the aid and attendance of another person to help them with their activities of daily living, then they can get even more money to help pay for that level of care. So the differences between these three different levels of pension has to do with the care level you need. And all a veteran has to have done to qualify for this is have served at least 1 day on served 90 total days on active duty, with one of those being during a wartime period, okay? So 90 days active total, with 1 day being in that period that Congress has outlined as the beginning and the ending date of what a wartime period is. Then they had to have received a discharge for something greater than dishonorable, and they have to have limited income, limited assets, and file an application. The VA is not knocking on anybody's doors asking if you're eligible for this benefit. You have to seek it out. The low-income pension, the amount of money that a veteran can get just for the base pension who is single can be up to $1,054 a month. If your income is less than that, then the VA will bring you up to that level to keep you from being impoverished. If you're married, it's $1,380 per month. Now, I'm highlighting this one right here. The veteran with a spouse for the low-income pension can get up to $1,380 per month, and I'm going to circle back to that in a second, okay? Now, I'm going to skip right over housebound and go to the aid and attendance, because this is where most people benefit the greatest, is that when you need home health care, assisted living care, or nursing home care, then there's additional tax-free income to pay for this level of care. And what the claimant must meet on the level of care criteria is that they either, if you are legally blind, then you automatically are in need of aid and attendance under the VA's definition. Or if you live in a nursing home, that's a skilled facility, you are in need of aid and attendance. Most of our clients and most of the people who want this benefit want to stay where? At home or assisted living. But where's the last place they want to go? A nursing home, okay? So we help people stay at home, stay as independent as possible, and still be able to afford it. But they do need to have the need for assistance on a regular basis with activities of daily living or supervision because of their memory loss. Supervision meaning they're unsafe to stay by themselves. In this situation, a veteran who's single can get up to $1,758 per month. And so that's just over $20,000, $24,000 a year or something. And if they're married, $2,085 per month. And then a widow of a veteran. Now the widow only has to have been married to the veteran for 1 year prior to death. And I do see late life marriages where somebody's in their 80s. And in fact, I tell the community sometimes, if you're not a veteran, marry a veteran. And stay married for at least a year, okay? So that's where life support, everybody signs these healthcare powers of attorney, I don't want life support. Well, maybe you do, at least for a year, right? So that's where planning comes into place. But anyway, this is tax-free, so let me ask you, just, hypothetically speaking, who would not benefit from an extra $24,000 of tax-free income per year? Nobody would benefit? Yeah, nobody has their hands up, so everyone would. I know I would. But there are income and there are asset limitations, and I'm going to just bring it down basic real quick for you. From the income, they look at your gross income to include your spouse's gross income. Now, most people's gross income exceed this limit, which is also the income limit. This is a double-sided coin. This is the most the VA will give you, but it's also the most they allow you to have from income from all other sources. But what happens is people call the VA and say, I want this benefit, and they ask you what your income is, and you're like, you're over income. But they don't ask the second question. The second question is the most important, and that is, what are your medical expenses you pay out of pocket for on a reoccurring basis? Because they are to take your gross income minus medical expenses before they compare it with this chart. And so like this last scenario, his income's $3,500, his assisted living cost, which is a permissible medical deduction, is $5,000. What's his income now? 0. He would qualify under the income standard. So now I'm going to take you to the asset standard. The asset standard essentially is, whether you're married or single, your assets have to be under $80,000. Your house is excluded, your cars are excluded, your personal property like jewelry and furniture are excluded. Everything else counts, okay? So that means a lot of people would not be eligible until and unless they spend down or they do really good planning. Now, how many of you have read the IRS tax code? Nobody. A couple of people. Now, how many of you have heard of it? Right. Now, would you pay more taxes than you're supposed to? Many people do because they don't see an accountant or a CPA to do their taxes. But voluntarily, you would not do that, right? Now, I see the VA very similar in that we have veterans laws to help us, to support us, and that we have to comply with. But that's where planning can become our friend in that we use the VA laws to help our clients remain independent, get access to quality care, and still qualify for this benefit by using the VA laws, even when they have more than $80,000. Now, not everybody can help veterans get these kind of benefits. Whether you're a lawyer or a non-lawyer, a veteran service organization, whomever, you have to be accredited by the VA. Claimants can always help themselves, and that's who the VA wants to do it. Because why? The denial rate is a lot higher. They don't have to pay out as much, right? Because claimants just don't know how to present a case. But you can always represent yourself. There's veteran service organizations. I assume you are a veteran service organization. Can help if they know, how to do the applications. Accredited individuals, one-time POA, that's usually a family member like a child, and then accredited agents, particularly attorneys. Now, the role of the accredited agent is to help you understand the benefits that are available, assess your personal situation, and help you preserve your quality of life and gain access to VA benefits. And then sometimes there's legal advice because what are we talking about? Care. And when we're planning for VA benefits, especially the third type I just told you about, the pension, when we plan for that, sometimes we are jeopardizing other benefits such as future Medicaid. So we have to make sure that we are looking at the global picture and not just veterans benefits in a blinders, like horses that race. I'm getting done. And so what our firm does, this is the last thing, what our firm does is we only assist with that last category, the non-service connected veterans benefits, plus estate planning and long-term care planning in general. If you're a service-connected disabled veteran, you can certainly call our office, but we will refer you to a very qualified attorney. In fact, he may even be a member of this organization, Drew Early, and he does service-connected disabled benefits. I have a handout in the back corner, as well as my brochures and my business cards, and I appreciate the opportunity to be before you today. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria. Victoria, we're going to have you come back for when our book, because all of this is in your books.